Let me ask you something. When was the last time you stopped explaining yourself? Not because you gave up, not because you didn't care, but because you finally realized your silence said everything. Words never could. There comes a moment when you understand this truth. Silence isn't avoidance. It's not weakness. It's not passive aggression. Sometimes silence is the last boundary you have left. And once you cross that line, there's no going back. Reframing silence. We're taught that communication fixes everything. That if you just explain clearly enough, calmly enough, kindly enough, things will work out. But that's only true when both sides are listening. What no one talks about is what happens when your words are consistently misunderstood, minimized, or used against you. When every conversation becomes a defense. When clarity turns into exhaustion. When explaining yourself feels like standing trial for your own emotions. That's when silence begins to change meaning. It stops being absence, it becomes information. The invisible breaking point. Silence doesn't happen suddenly. It's not dramatic. It doesn't arrive with slammed doors or raised voices. It builds quietly. After the 5th time you repeat yourself, after the 10th time you're told you're too sensitive, after the moment you realize the problem isn't how you're speaking, it's that being understood was never the goal. People assume silence means nothing is happening, but psychologically, silence often comes after someone has tried everything. They spoke, they clarified, they adjusted their tone, they softened their needs, they waited, they hoped, and then something shifts, not outwardly, internally. Why silence hurts others more than anger? Anger invites engagement. Tears invite reassurance. Words invite debate. Silence? Silence removes access, and that's why it unsettles people. When you stop explaining, you're no longer available for negotiation. You're no longer participating in emotional tug-of-war. You're no longer proving your worth through effort to someone who relied on your reactions. Your silence feels threatening, not because it's cruel, but because it's uncontrollable. They can't argue with it, they can't twist it, they can't exhaust it. Silence doesn't escalate, it ends things. Silence versus stonewalling. Let's be clear about something important. Silence is not stonewalling. Stonewalling is used to punish. Silence as a boundary is used to protect. Stonewalling says, you don't matter. Boundary silence says, I can't keep abandoning myself. One is manipulative. The other is self-preserving. The difference isn't in behavior, it's in intention. Silence becomes a boundary when communication consistently costs you your peace. The nervous system perspective. Your nervous system keeps score, long before your mind makes decisions. Every dismissed feeling, every unresolved conversation, every time you brace before speaking, eventually your body learns something. Talking is unsafe, so it chooses stillness. Silence isn't always a conscious choice. Sometimes it's your nervous system saying, I can't do this anymore. This is why silence often feels heavy, but also relieving. You're grieving connection while finally experiencing rest. Why silence is often misunderstood. People interpret silence based on their own fears. If someone fears abandonment, your silence feels like rejection. If someone avoids accountability, your silence feels like judgment. If someone is used to control, your silence feels like rebellion. Rarely do people ask, what did it cost them to go quiet? Because that question requires empathy and responsibility. Silence forces others to sit with themselves. And not everyone is willing to do that. The moment silence becomes permanent. There's a specific moment when silence stops being temporary. It happens when you realize even understanding wouldn't change anything, not because they're incapable, but because they're unwilling. At that point, words become performative. Explanations become self-betrayal. So you withdraw not emotionally cold, but emotionally complete. You don't need closure conversations. You don't need final speeches. Your absence becomes the message. The guilt that comes with choosing silence. Choosing silence doesn't feel empowering at first. It feels wrong. You question yourself. You replay conversations. You wonder if you're being unfair. That guilt comes from conditioning. You were taught that endurance equals love, that patience equals virtue, that boundaries equal selfishness. But silence as a boundary isn't about punishment. It's about refusing to bleed quietly just so others can stay comfortable. Silence is not the end. It's a transition. Silence doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop over-caring. You stop investing where there is no return. You stop explaining what was never misunderstood. You stop fighting to be seen, and something unexpected happens. Your energy returns. Your thoughts slow down. Your inner world becomes quieter, clearer, not empty, aligned. Whose silence is actually for? Silence isn't meant to teach lessons. It's not for them. It's for you. It's for the part of you that learned to survive through effort, the part that believed love had to be earned, the part that stayed too long because leaving felt cruel. Silence says, I choose peace over performance, and that choice changes everything. When silence is misread as coldness, some people will say you changed. They're right. You changed because you stopped negotiating your dignity. You changed because you no longer confuse connection with tolerance. You changed because your nervous system finally relaxed. Silence looks like coldness to those who benefited from your warmth without responsibility. That doesn't make your silence wrong. It makes it necessary. The quiet strength of saying nothing. There is a profound strength in not responding, not defending, not correcting, not chasing understanding. It takes confidence to let your reality stand without explanation. Silence is not avoidance when you've already shown up fully. It's closure without ceremony. What silence teaches you? Silence teaches you discernment. You learn who listens without needing repeated explanations. You learn who respects boundaries without demanding access. You learn who values your presence instead of your compliance. And most importantly, you learn that peace is not something you receive, it's something you protect. If you're in a season of silence, it doesn't mean you failed at communication. It may mean you finally succeeded at self-respect. Silence isn't empty, it's full of everything you stopped tolerating, and sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all.